benefits හම්බ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right, we can receive grants from the government when we are engaged, when we are doing our business, especially if we are more environmental conscious business, right? Environmental friendly product එකක් හදනවා නම්, right? ඊට මේ දවස්වල අපි කාබනික පොහොර සම්බන්ධ මොකක් හරි ව්‍යාපෘතියක් කරනවා නම් අපේ business එකේ government එකෙන් ඒකට ආධාර හම්බ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Government grants can be received, right? Likewise, to promote certain aspects, right? To promote certain things, the government will provide the grants for the companies. Then how can we account for such? That is what is being addressed in LKAS 20. And here also these definitions, right? These definitions you should know, and more frequently you have been tested on these definitions, right? More than anything else, you have been tested on definitions when it comes to LKAS 20, government grants. Right. So these are the key definitions that you should know. First one is what? Government. So what do we mean by a government? Grants we can receive from several parties, right? To identify it as a government grant, then we should know what is a government. In the standard, how it has defined the government. So how it has defined the government? It can be the government or central government, right? It can be government agencies and similar bodies, whether local, national or international. එතකොට ලංකාවේ ආණ්ඩුවෙන් ලැබෙන එක විතරක්ම නෙවෙයි මේ. මොකද පිටරට ආණ්ඩුවකින් අපිට ලැබුණා, right? If we receive a grant from a foreign government, that is also coming under this standard. That is why knowing this definition is very important. Government grants කිව්වම අපි හිතන්නේ හරි ලංකාවේ government එකෙන් central government එකෙන් හරි මොකක් හරි පළාත් පාලන ආයතනයකින් අපිට මොකක් හරි grant එකක් ලැබුණොම ඒක තමයි මේ standard එකේ cover කරන්නේ. But we need to know these definitions, right? Here it says government means not only the local governments, but it can be an international government as well, right? Government agencies and similar bodies, whether local, national or international, all we consider as government as per this standard, right? Then there are two things, right? In terms of right, what we get from the government, there are two things. One we can call government assistance, right? Government assistance. What do you mean by government assistance? How it has been defined here? Action, right? Action by government designed to provide an economic benefit specific to an entity or range of entities qualifying under certain criteria. Action by government designed to provide an economic benefit, right? Action එක government එක ගන්න මොකක් හරි ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක්, right? Government assistance. දැන් හිතන්න, for an example, assume, right, we are going to manufacture an environmental friendly product. මොකක් හරි පරිසර හිතකාමී product එකක් එළියට දාන්න හදන්න, right? ඒකට අපිට මොකක් හරි infrastructure facilities on. Right? We need infrastructure facilities for that. If the government is taking an action on that, අදාළ යටිතල පහසුකම් සම්පාදනය කරන්න සපයන්න government එක මොකක් හරි action එකක් ගන්නව නම් ඒ action එක ඒ ගන්න actions තමයි අපි කියන්නේ government assistance කියන්නේ. Right? That is government assistance. So these government assistance, right? These government assistance we do not recognize in our financial statements, but we need to disclose. We only disclose government assistance. We are not going to recognize it. Right? අපේ business එකට දැන් අපේ factory එකට යන පාර හදලා දුන්න කියලා government එක government පාර හදලා දෙන්න යෝජනාවක් හරි action එකක් ගත්ත කියලා government එක ඒක government assistance එකක්. That is an action taken by the government, right, to provide us an economic benefit. අපිට economic benefit එකක් දෙන්න එයාලා ගත්ත action එකක්, right? ඒ අදාළ ඒ ප්‍රදේශයේ පාරවල් ටික හදන එක, පාරවල් ටික කාපට් කරන එක, නැත්නම් පාරවල් වලට තාක් ටික දාලා දෙන එක, ඉන්ෆ්‍රාස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක ඩෙවලොප් කරලා ගන්න එක එයාලගේ ඇක්ෂන් එකක්. right? Such things we do not recognize in our financial statements, but we can disclose. We are going to manufacture, right? We have opened a factory in this area to produce this kind of a product, right? These are the benefits that will receive for the larger wide society by, right, by our this particular operation. For that, as a government assistant, they are developing they have taken decision to develop the infrastructure facility of this area, right? They have taken an infrastructure facility to develop. They have taken a decision to develop the infrastructure facility of this area. So that is an action taken by the government in order to provide an economic benefit specific to an entity or range of entities qualifying under certain criteria. So those are government assistance. If it is a government assistance, we are not recognize it in our financial statements. We only disclose it. Then government grants. What it says: assistance by government in the form of transfer of resources to an entity, right? Assistance by government in the form of transfer of resources to an entity. මෙතනදී government assistance එකේදී ආයතනයට අපේ කම්පැනි එකට resources transfer එකක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. රජයේ තියෙන සම්පත් අපිට අපේ කම්පැනි එකට එන්නේ නැහැ. එයාලා අපිට උදව්වක් විදියට ඒ පැත්තේ infrastructure ටික හදලා දෙනවා. යටිතල පහසුකම් ටික හදලා දෙනවා. assistance එකක්. හැබැයි අපේ ආයතනය තුලට එයාලා government එකේ resources transfer වීමක් සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. But if it is a government grant, then there should be a transfer of economic resources to the entity, right? As an assistance of the government, as assistance by government in the form of transfers of resources to an entity in return for past or future compliance with certain conditions. When they are transferring these resources, we need to comply with their conditions. නිකම්ම දෙන්නේ නැහැ. කොන්දේසි දාලා දෙන්නේ. අපි ඒ කොන්දේසි වලට එකඟ වෙනව නම් ඒ වගේ වෙලාවට අපිට පුළුවන් ඒක government grant එකක් කියලා හඳුනා ගන්න. කොන්දේසි වලට එකඟ වුනේ නැති වුණොත් අපිට ඒ ගත්ත ගන්න හිතන්න අපිට මොකක් හරි manufacturing plant එකක් දාන්න අපිට 10 million දෙනවා government එක. අපි මොකක් හරි හොඳ environmental friendly project proposal එකක් දීලා government එකට හරි government එකේ ගැන සතුටුයි. government එක අපිට 10 million දෙනවා මේ manufacturing plant එක දාන්නේ. ඒ දෙද්දි මෙයාලා අපිට conditions දානවා. right? මෙන්න මේ conditions වලට ඔයාලා agree වෙන්න ඕන. හිතන්න හම්බුනාට පස්සේ අපි ඒ conditions අපි සමහර ඒවා කඩ කරලා තියෙනවා කියලා. Right? We have not complied with their conditions, then what will happen? Then we need to repay that amount, repay that 10 million. අර අපිට දීපු 10 billion අපිට ආයේ repay කරන්න වෙනවා. ආයේ government එකට දෙන්න වෙනවා. එතකොට ඒක government grant එකක් නෙමෙයි. එතකොට ඒක මොකද්ද? අපේ liability එකක් වෙනවා. අපි එයාලා දාන කොන්දේසි කඩ කරොතින් අපිට ඒක grant එකක් නෙමෙයි, දීමනාවක් නෙමෙයි. ඒක අපිට මොකක්ද? Liability එකක් වෙනවා. Right? It becomes a liability. දීමනාවක් නම් it becomes an income. අපිට කාගෙන් හරි නිකන් හම්බ වෙනවා නම් ඒක අපිට ආදායමක් නේ. නිකන් හම්බ වෙනවා නම් ආදායමක්. නිකන් හම්බ වෙනවට right නිකන් දුන්නට එයාලා කොන්දේසි දාලා නම් දෙන්නේ. ඒ කොන්දේසි අපි කඩ කරොතින් අපිට මොකක් කරන්න වෙනවද? ආයෙ අර හම්බ වෙච්ච මුදල දෙන්න වෙනවා. දෙන්න වෙනවා කියලා කියන්නේ ඒක මොකක්ද? ගෙවන්න ඕන ගාණක් වෙනවා. ගෙවන්න ඕන ගාණක් කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? liability එකක්. Right? It becomes payable for us if we do not comply with their conditions. That particular amount we receive from the government will become a payable amount. So it is a liability. Then we need to recognize it as a liability. Right? If we comply with their conditions, then yes, we can recognize it as an income. Right? Government grants. The difference between government grants and government assistance you should know. If it is a government assistance, that is only an action taken by the government. there is no any transfer of economic resources. But when it comes to a government grant, then that is an assistance provided by the government in a way of in the form of transfer of economic resources. එයාලා ගාව තියෙනේම අපිට දෙනවා. Cash වෙන්න පුළුවන්, නැත්නම් එයාලා ගාව තියෙන machines වෙන්න පුළුවන්, එයාගේ තියෙන building එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, එයාලගේ land එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Transfer of economic resources, transfer of resources, right, under certain conditions. So we need to comply with these conditions as well in order to identify it as a government grant. So these government grants we can recognize. We can recognize in our financial statements. So give me 2 minutes, students. Right. Okay. So if it is a government assistance, we need to only disclose that. And if it is a government grant, we need to recognize it. Right? In order to be a government grant, we should receive, there should be a transfer of resources by the government to the entity, and also the entity needs to comply with the conditions imposed by the government. Right. These government grants we can categorize into 2 main groups. The government grants apita categories dekakata kadanna puluwan. One is we call grants related to assets. Grants related to assets. And the other category is grants related to income. Grants related to assets and grants related to income. So what is the difference between these two? Grants related to assets, what does that mean? Grants related to assets. Government grants whose primary condition is that an entity qualifying for them should purchase, construct, or otherwise acquire non-current assets. Non-current assets like a building, right? එතකොට grant එක දෙන්නෙම government එක ඒ දෙන්නෙම යාලගේ resources transfer කරන්නෙම එක්ක building එකක් මිලදී ගන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් building එකක් අලුතෙන් construct කරන්න මුලින් ඉඳන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් වෙන කොහේ හරි තියෙන building එකක් acquire කරගන්න. ඔය purpose building ම නෙවෙයි. It can be any form of non-current. It can be a machinery, right? It can be a land, it can be a building, whatever. If it is a non-current assets, right? Non-current assets. Right. It can be a motor vehicle, right? Any form of non-current assets. If, right, their primary condition is, or if they provide this government grant in order to either purchase or construct or to acquire non-current asset, then those are grants related to assets. Right? එතකොට government එක අපිට මෙන්න මේ හිතන සල්ලි දෙනවා කියලා ඒ සල්ලි ටික දෙන්නේ එක්ක non-current asset එකක් මිලදී ගන්නවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් non current asset එකක් construct කරන්න මුල ඉඳන් foundation දාලා building එක ගහන්න නම් හදන්න නම් එහෙම නැත්නම් වෙන කොහේ හරි තියෙන එකක් acquire කරගන්න නම් then those are grants related to assets, right? Government grants whose primary condition is that an entity qualifying for them should purchase, construct, or otherwise acquire a non-current assets. Then grants related to income, but government grants other than those related to assets, right? So government grants can be divided into two main groups. Those are what? Grants related to assets and grants related to income. Forgivable loans. Forgivable loans. What do you mean by that? Forgivable, forget කරනවා කියලා කියන්නේ බත අමතක කරනවා. Forgivable loans, loan එක දෙනවා, loan එක අමතක කරනවා. Right, from the terms itself you can get the meaning. Loans which the lender undertakes to waive repayment of under certain prescribed conditions. Loan එකක් දෙනවා මෙන්න මේ conditions වලට agree නම් මේ conditions satisfy කරනවා නම් then they are going to waive the repayment. You need not to repay it. First, the government is offering it as a loan, and if the entity is agree for the conditions that the government impose, right, then they may consider of a waiving of repayment. Repayments කරන්න ඕනේ, right? Installments කියවන්න ඕනේ. එතකොට ඒක forgivable loan එකක් කියලා identify කරන්න පුළුවන්. Forgivable loan. Recognition criteria, right? A grantee is recognized in the financial statements only when there is a reasonable assurance that the entity will comply with the conditions attached to the grant and the grant will be received. Government grant එකක් නම් we can recognize it. We have to recognize it in our financial statement only when it satisfies these two conditions. මෙන්න මේ condition දෙක satisfy කරනවා නම් විතරයි අපිට double entry pass කරන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. එකක් මොකද්ද? The entity will comply with the conditions attached to the grant. එයාලා දාන කොන්දේසි වලට අපිට එකග වෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් government එක මෙන්න මේ දේවල් කරන්න කියනවා. employees ලා ගාන මේ ගානට අඩු කරන්න කිය මේ employees ලා ගාන minimum මේ amount එක maintain කරන්න ඕන කියනවා. Right? Energy consumption එක මීට වඩා අඩුවෙන් තියාගන්න තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේ conditions දාලා ඒ conditions වලට අපිට agree වෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් ඒ conditions වලට අපිට comply වෙන්න පුළුවන් නම් වෙන්න ඕන. That is one criteria that we need to meet. That we should able to comply with the conditions imposed by the right government with respect to that grant. And the other one is right. Another one is that there should be a reasonable assurance that the grant will be received. Grant එක ලැබෙනවා කියලා reasonable assurance එකක්. මොකක් හරි decision එකක් approve වෙච්ච තැනකින් authoritative decision should be there. Like we are going to give this grant. කට වශයෙන්ට බෑ. කැමති කෙනෙක් ඇවිල්ලා කියලා යනවා හරි අපි උතන්ට මෙච්චර ගාණක් දෙන්නම් කියලා. එහෙම බෑ අපිට evidence තියෙනවා. එහෙම decision එකක් ගත්ත කියලා අඩු තරමේ evidence තියෙන්න ඕනේ කඳුර ගන්න. Right? So those are the two conditions that need to be met in order to recognize a government grant in our books of account. First one, we should be able to comply with the conditions attached to the grant, and also there should be a reasonable assurance that the grant will be received. Right. Okay. So before moving to this one, when it comes to accounting these government grants, I take it like this. LKAS 20. government grants. Government grants. Once we identify a government grant, and if we able to recognize if it meet the recognition criteria, then we can account for that, right? Then we can account for that. In order to account for government grants, there are two methods. First, one method we called deferred income method. Deferred income method. Deferred income method. Deferred income method. And the other method we called netting off method. Netting off method. So these are the two accounting methods we can use in order to account for government grants. One is deferred income method and the other one is netting off method. Right? Deferred income method and netting off method. Right. Assume we acquire an asset. We acquire an asset worth of 100,000. Right, with a useful life of 4 years. We are going to acquire an asset worth of 100,000, right, a non-current asset with a useful life of 4 years. Right? And here, to acquire this asset, government is going to grant us. Government will grant us, or government have given 50,000 rupees. And the conditions අපි ඔක්කොම agree වෙනවා. agree වෙලා යාළගෙන් 50,000ක් ගන්නවා. government එක අපිට 50,000ක් දෙනවා. ලක්ෂයක් වටින asset එකක් ගන්න හදන අපි ලක්ෂයක් වටින asset එකක් ගන්නවා. ඒ ලක්ෂයෙන් 50,000ක් දෙනවා කවුද? ඒ ලක්ෂයෙන් 50,000ක් දෙන 150ක් අපිට ස්පොන්සර් කරනවා කවුද? government එක. මොකක්ද machine එකක් කියලා හිතන්න. machine එකේ වටිනාකම ලක්ෂයයි. දැන් අපි මේ machine එක ගන්නවා. මේ machine එක ගන්න ලක්ෂයෙන් 150ක ස්පොන්සර් එකක් 150ක ස්පොන්සර් කරනවා government එකේ. government will provide 50,000 as grant. So using the deferred income method, we'll take the same scenario here as well. We are acquiring an asset worth of 100,000 with a useful life of 4 years, and the government grant amount is 50,000. Right. If we use the deferred income method, how we need to account for this? I will use T accounts here. Acquiring an asset. සල්ලි දීලා asset එකක් ගන්නවා. What is the double entry? We pay cash and acquire an asset. We pay cash and acquire an asset. What should be the double entry? Asset should be debited by 100,000. Cash should be credited by 100,000. Right? Here it is asset. Here it is cash. ලක්ෂයක් දීලා asset එකක් ගන්න. Cash credit 100,000, asset debit 100,000. Right. And For that, government has given us 50,000 rupees. Government has given us 50,000 rupees. So here, if we use the deferred income method, we should have an account called deferred income. Deferred income. Deferred income account. So if we receive 50,000 as a government grant, what we need to do? 50,000 government එකෙන් ලැබෙනවා cash ලැබෙනවා එතකොට cash account එක මොකක් වෙනවද debit වෙනවා right and this amount we need to credit to a deferred income account deferred income account deferred income here it is cash right this is the grant we received by the government 50,000 cash account debit, deferred income account credit. Right. Now, the useful life of this asset is 4 years. The useful life of this asset is 4 years. So, what we need to do? We need to depreciate this asset. Asset එකක් නේ ලක්ෂයක් වශයෙන් වටින asset එකක් පළදායි ආයු කාලේ අවුරුදු 4යි. එහෙනම් අවුරුදු 4 පුරා අපි මොකක් කරන්න ඕනද? Make share කළ හැකි වටිනාකම බෙදන්න. Right. So what should be the depreciation amount? What should be the depreciation amount for year 1? 100,000 over 4. What? 25,000. 25,000. 25,000 is the depreciation amount. Depreciation amount. Then, right? For year 1, what should be the income we need to recognize it in our P&L? Government එකෙන් දැන් අපිට ලැබිලානේ තියෙන්නේ 50,000. ඒ 50,000න් අපි කීයක් income එක විදියට අඳුන ගන්න ඕනද? මේ 50,000 ලැබුණේ මොකටද? අර අවුරුදු 4ක් පුරාවට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් asset එක ගන්න. එහෙනම් ඔය 50,000න් 4න් එකක් අපි පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ income එක විදියට අඳුන ගන්න ඕන. So what should be the amount credited to our P&L? 50,000 over 4, that is 12,500. 12,500. එතකොට අපි පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ fixed, right? If we refer to our P&L in year 1, we should able to identify an amount worth of 12,500 under other income as government grant income. So පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ අපි P&L එක දිහා බැලුවොත් එතන other income යටතේ ඇති government grant කියලා රුපියල් 12,500ක්. The remaining amount is what? 37,500. 37,500. The balance brought forward balance is 37,500. මෙයා කොතනද ඉන්නේ? This will be where? මෙයා ඉන්නවා under non-current liabilities. Non-current liabilities. So this is simply the deferred income method. ලැබෙන government grant එක අපි deferred income account එකකට දාගන්නවා. දාගෙන year by year we transfer the respective amount to the P&L. The balance in the deferred income account we need to reflect as a non-current liability. Actually it should be right divided as the current portion and the non-current portion. But the 12,500 current liabilities වලට යන්නේ. ඉතුරු 25,000 තමයි ඇත්තටම non-current liabilities වලට යන්නේ. Right? That is simply the deferred income method. Deferred income ලැබෙන grant එක credit කරගත්ත අවුරුද්දෙන් අවුරුද්ද පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ 12,500ක income එකක් අඳුන ගන්න. ලැබෙන government grant එක ගෙඩිය පිටින් ඒ අවුරුද්දේ income එකක් විදියට අඳුන ගන්න නැතුව ඵලදායි ජීව කාලය පුරා නැත්නම් යාගේ useful life එක පුරාවට within these 4 years, right, we systematically identify the income over this 4-year period. ගෙඩිය පිටින් 50000ම අපිට හම්බෙන අවුරුද්ද අඳුර ගන්න නැතුව අපි අවුරුද්දෙන් අවුරුද්ද useful life එක throughout these 4 years we recognize the income, deferred income method. Right. The second method is netting off method. Netting off method. So how can we account for that one? Right. Here, right. Here, we do not have an account called deferred income. Since we are acquiring asset, we must have asset account, right? We must have an asset account. And here is our cash account. Here is our cash account. We acquire an asset worth of 100,000. ලක්ෂය දීලා asset එකක් ගන්න 100,000. Government එකෙන් 50,000ක් ලැබෙනකොට සල්ලි cash account needs to be debit, right? Cash account needs to be debit. So this is the grant received, right? In this method, what we have done, cash account එක debit කළා, deferred income කියලා account එකක් හදාගෙන යාට credit කරා. But in the netting off method, we are crediting this to the respective asset account. මෙතන අපි වෙනම deferred income කියලා account එකක් හදාගන්න අදාළ amount එක asset එක අදාළ asset එකට credit කරනවා, right? So this is the grant we received, 50,000. Then when calculating the depreciation, right, we need to take the net balance. We need to take the net balance. What is the net balance of this asset account now? 100,000 minus 50,000. That is what? That is 50,000. 100,000 minus 50,000. That is 50,000. 50,000 over useful life, that is 4 years. So the depreciation charge for the year should be 12,500. Depreciation charge for the year should be 12,500. That is all, right? That is all in terms of netting off method. Deferred income method එක නම් අපිට වෙනම deferred income account එකක් තියෙනවා. ලැබෙන amount එක අපි ඒකට credit කරගෙන අවුරුද්දෙන් අවුරුද්ද දැන් ඒකේ useful life එක පුරාවට අපි systematically we recognize the due amount, the respective amounts in the P&L. But here, right, we credit it to the asset account, and when calculating depreciation, we consider the net amount of the asset account. Net amount of the asset account. So the company can use either deferred income method or the netting off method when they are accounting for these government grants. Government grants will account karati. Either they can go with this method, deferred income method, or else they can use the netting off method. So these are the two options the company have, the accountant have. Right. Example number 1. Example number 1. Rupasinghe Radios Private Limited receives a government grant representing 50% of the cost. 50% of the cost of a depreciating asset which cost 40,000 rupees. Asset එකේ වටිනාකම 40,000. ඒකෙන් 150ක් මොකද්ද? grant එක. The residual value is nil. The useful life is 4 years. Make it useful life එක අවුරුදු 4යි. Required, first one, demonstrate how the grant will be recognized if Rupasinghe Radios depreciates the assets over 4 years straight line and at 40% reducing balance method. Demonstrate how the grant will be recognized. Right, how the grant will be recognized. If Rupasinghe radios depreciate the asset over 4 years straight line and at 40% reducing balance method. Right. Okay. Over 4 years straight line. Over 4 years straight line. We'll take it like this. Year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. Right. Straight line method. That is part A. Tell me the value of the government grant. Government grant ke value එක කීයද? What is the value of the government grant? We are acquiring an asset worth of 40,000 and we receive 50% of the cost as the grant. So 40,000 into 50%, that is what? 20,000. So this is the value of the grant. So this is the grant value, 20,000. Straight lines means, right, we identify a similar amount throughout its useful life. We identify a similar amount throughout its useful life. So 20,000 over 4, that is what? In year 1, we recognize 5,000. In year 2 also we recognize 5,000. Here also we recognize 5,000. And here also we recognize 5,000. Straight line method. Recognizing it in reducing balance method, part B. Reducing balance method. Reducing balance method. මේ කතා කරන්නේ deferred income මෙතන. අපි මේ අවුරුද්දෙන් අවුරුද්ද අඳුන ගන්නවනේ. මේ මෙතන මම පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙන මොන method එකද? Straight line method එක. Right? හැම අවුරුද්දෙම එක සමාන ගානක්. එහෙම නැතුව අපිට reducing balance method එකට යන්නත් පුළුවන්. If you are going with reducing balance method, part B here, at 40% reducing balance method, how can we identify this grant income? How we can identify that? Here in year 1, that is what? 20,000, right, into 40%. What is the value? 8,000. So in year 1, we need to identify a grant income worth of 8,000 if we are going with reducing balance method at 40% reducing balance method. In year 2, 20000 total grant එක එකෙන් 8000ක් පළවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ අතුන ගත්තා. තව කීයක් ඉතුරුද? 12,000 is remaining. 12,000 into 40% is what? 4,800. 4,800. Year 3, තව 12000ක් අඳුන ගන්න තියෙනවා. ඒකෙන් 4,800ක් 4,800ක් අඳුනගෙන දෙවෙනි අවුරුද්දේ අඳුන ගත්තා. තව කීයක් ඉතුරුද? 12,000 minus 4,800. What is the value? $12,000 minus 4,800. That is 7,200. 7,200 into 40% here. 2,880. So since its useful life is 4 years, the remaining amount we need to identify in year 4, 4,320. This is a netting off method එක නෙවෙයි. මේ කතා කරේ deferred income method එකේ මෙන්න මෙතනින් මේ transfer කරන amount එක අඳුන ගන්න විදිය. Here, how to identify this amount? We can use either straight line method, right? We can use straight line method, or else we can use reducing balance method. Reducing balance method. එක එක අවුරුද්දේ transfer වෙන්න ඕන ගණන් methods දෙකේ කොහොමද කියලා තමයි ඔය පෙන්නන්නේ. Okay. And so these are the two methods we have discussed. Set up the grant as deferred income. This is what we call deferred income method. And then part B, deduct the grant in arriving at the carrying amount of the asset. That is what we call netting off method. The two methods of accounting, right? Deferred income method and netting off method. Example number 2. Example number 2. The company receives a 20% grant towards the cost of a new item of machinery. Machine එකේ cost එකෙන් 120ක grant එකක් හම්බ වෙනවා. Which cost 100,000. Machine එකේ cost එක 100,000. So what should be the grant amount? Grant amount is what? 100,000 into 20%. That is 20,000. 20,000. Right. The machinery has an expected life of 4 years. Again, the useful life is 4 years and a nil residual value. The expected profits of the company before accounting for depreciation on the new machine or the grant amount to 50,000 per annum in each year of the machinery's life. The expected profits of the company before accounting for depreciation, right? Before accounting for depreciation, profit before depreciation is 50,000. So this is what? Profit before depreciation per annum in each year of the machinery's life. Right. Required part A, what? Deduct the grant in arriving at the carrying amount of the assets. This is what we called netting off method. And then part B, set up the grant as deferred income, right? Deferred income method. Deferred income method. Right. Okay. We'll take it here. Example 2. Part A, netting off method. The useful life of this machinery is 4 years. The useful life of this machinery is 4 years. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. This is statement of profit or loss. Statement of profit or loss. Statement of profit or loss. Year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. Take the balance sheet as well. year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4. Statement of financial position. Right. Netting off method එකේදී අපිට deferred income account එකක් තියෙනවද? No, right. We have the asset. I will have only the asset account here. Machine. Right. And here, what else? What are the other information given? Profit before depreciation is given as 50,000. Profit before before depreciation. Profit before depreciation is 50,000 in each and every year throughout the useful life of this machine. 50,000. And here also we have assets, right? And we have assets. අපි ගන්න machine එකේ වටිනාකම කීයද? What is the cost of the machine? What is the cost of the machine? That is 100,000. That is 100,000, right? We pay cash and purchase a machine worth of 100,000. On ලක්ෂයක් ගෙවලා machine එකක් ගන්න. මේ machine එක ගන්න අපිට හම්බ වෙන grant එක කීයද? What is the grant amount we receive to purchase this machine? That is 20% of this. 20% of this means 20,000. In netting off method, we do not credit it into a separate deferred income account, but we credit it to a cash account එක debit වෙලා credit කරන්නේ කොහාටද? The grant we received, right? Cash account එක debit වෙලා credit වෙන්නේ machine account එකට 20,000. 20,000. So what should be the depreciation? We will say year 1 depreciation. What should be the depreciation amount for year 1 then? Remember, we are in netting off method, right? What should be the depreciation amount for year 1? That is 100,000 minus 20,000. That is 80,000. 80,000 over the useful life, which is 4 years. So it is 20,000. 20,000. So in year 1, right, the depreciation amount, depreciation charge for year 1 is what? 20,000. 20,000. 20,000. Then what is the amount reflect as assets, right? Under assets we have machines. Machine. What is the amount? Carried down balance is what? 60,000. Here brought forward balance is 60,000. It means at the end of year 1, the value of the machine is what? 60,000. 60,000. 60,000. Right? So here in year 2, what should be the depreciation? Year 2 depreciation should be what? Year 2 depreciation should be what? Again, that is what? 20,000. 20,000. Right? 20,000. So depreciation in year 2 also 20,000. 20,000. Carried down balance 40,000. It means the value brought forward for the next year is 40,000. 40,000. It means at the end of year 2, the value of the machine is what? 40,000. 40,000. මේ netting off method එක පාවිච්චි කරමින් කොහොමද අපේ P&L එකේ balance sheet එකේ figures reflect වෙන්නේ කියලා පෙන්නන්න. And for year 3 depreciation is what? Year 3 depreciation is what? That is again 20,000. Yeah, that is 20,000. So what should be the brought forward balance for the next period? ඊළඟ period එකට ඉස්සරහට අරන් යන balance එක කීයද? That is 20,000. 20,000. 20,000. It means at the end of year 3, the value of the machine is 20,000. And for year 4 also, the depreciation charge is 20,000. Then at the end of year 4, the balance of the asset, balance of the machine should be nil. The depreciation charge for year 4 is 20,000. ඔන්න ඔය විදිහට තමයි netting off method එකට ගියොත් එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි කියනවා deduct grant in arriving the carrying amount of the asset. Deduct grant in arriving the carrying amount of the asset. Grant එක අඩු කරලා තියෙන carrying amount එක හොයන්න. ඒකෙන් තමයි අපි depreciation decide කරන්නේ. So this is how the things are reflected if we use the netting off method. Right. So that is netting off method. So I'll use the same and a different color to reflect the what? B. Deferred income method. Deferred income method. So I will erase this one. A green, right? Blue color එකෙන් තියෙන්නේ netting off method එකට කියුතින් කොහොමද P&L එකේ balance sheet එකේ අපේ accounts වල figures reflect වෙන්නේ කියන එක. Now I am going to use green color to show you how the things the same will reflect if we use the deferred income method. So I will erase this. Right. We have the machine account and also can you please mute your mic? And also we have the deferred income account. This is machinery. This is deferred income account. Deferred income account. Right. We purchase a machinery worth of 100,000 paying cash. 100,000 debit, cash account 100,000 credit. And for that we receive a grant worth of 20,000 from the government. So that 20,000 we debit it to the cash account and we are to credit. We credit it to the deferred income account. Deferred income account. Right. So what should be the depreciation charge for year 1? depreciation for year 1. What should be the depreciation amount? 100,000 over 4 years, that is 25,000. So here, as depreciation, we need to identify how much? 25,000. 25,000, right? And from the deferred income account, we need to transfer how much to the P&L. Since our useful life is 4 years, 20,000 over 4, what is the amount? 5,000 we need to transfer as grant income. Grant income. In year 1, we need to credit 5,000 to our P&L. Right? We need to credit 5,000 to our P&L. Then what should be the amount here as machine under our asset? What should be the amount here? After deducting the depreciation, carried down balance is 75,000. Right. The brought forward balance for the next period is 75,000. So here in assets, we recognize the machine at 75,000 rupees. Then what about this one? What is the carried down balance here? 15,000, right? 15,000. So the brought forward balance for the next period is 15,000. 15,000. So we have current liabilities. So we have non-current liabilities and current liabilities. Non-current liabilities and current liabilities. Now, what is the total liability amount is what? Total liability amount is 15,000, right? Total liability amount is 15,000. But we know what? 5,000 is due in the next year. 5,000 is due in the next year. So under current liabilities, right? Grant liability. Grant liability. Here also grant liability. Grant liability. Total is 15,000. Within the next year, we need to pay 5,000. We need to transfer 5,000. And the non-current liability portion is 10,000. Right? Non-current liability portion is 10,000. Okay, so altogether it is 15,000. Right? I will do for year 2 and you continue for the rest of the years. In year 2, what is the depreciation value? Depreciation for year 2 is what? Depreciation for year 2 again, that is 25,000. It means as depreciation in year 2, we need to identify 25,000. Here, what is the amount we need to transfer to P&L? That is 5,000, right? P&L as grant income, we need to credit 5,000. And what is the carrying down balance? What is the carrying down balance? That is, or the brought forward balance for the next period is 10,000. 10,000. So out of this 10,000, 5,000 become liable in the next year, and the remaining 5,000 we can identify under non-current liabilities. Here, when it comes to the asset, what should be the amount here? At the end of year 2, the amount we need to recognize in our books of account is 50,000. The carrying value of the asset is 50,000. Right. So complete the rest of the years, rest of the things here up to year 4. So how it should be for the rest of the years. Right. Take this depreciation for year 3. Again, that is 25,000. So here it is 25,000. Carried down balance is, then it becomes again 25,000. Brought forward balance for year 4 is 25,000. Right, it means here the value is 25,000. We need to transfer to the P&L as grant income 5,000. So the carried transfer 5,000 as grant income to the P&L. Then the carrying, the balance carried down will be 5,000. Forward balance is 5,000. So here under current liabilities, grant liability value is 5,000. And in year 4, the depreciation for year 4 is 25,000. Depreciation for year 4 is 25,000. Then the balance of the asset, the carrying value of the asset at the end of year 4 will be nil. Right? The grant income that need to be recognized in the P&L for year 4 is again 5,000. And right, this account will, deferred income will be nil. The balance will be nil at the end of year 4. So this is how we can account, right? In terms of accounting, how these two methods can be used. Netting off method එක පාවිච්චි කරතින් reflect වෙන විදිය තමයි නිල් පාටින් පෙන්නන්නේ. Deferred income method එක පාවිච්චි කරතින් P&L balance sheet එකේ figures එන විදිය තමයි I have used in green color, right?